this is Manoj and I am from BV Raju Institute of Technology, currently pursuing my second year, and I am going to explain you about Jdbc, Jdbc drivers and Jdbc program. Coming to basics, what is Jdbc? Jdbc is going through a textbook definition. Jdbc is an application programming interface that establishes a connection between a standard database and a Java application that intends to use the database. Generally, Jdbc is a tool that helps us to connect Java program to and database. If you want to connect a Java program to and data SQL or Oracle database, we generally use this Jdbc. But Jdbc cannot directly connect to these databases, so Jdbc uses Jdbc drivers for this purpose. Now, what are Jdbc drivers? Jdbc driver is a collection of Java classes that enables you to connect to a certain database. For instance, if you are having a MySQL database and if you want to connect that MySQL database to a Java program, MySQL database will have its own Jdbc driver. So you have to use that URL to connect the MySQL database to a Java application. In this way, these drivers helps us to connect Jdbc to the database. And there are 4 types of drivers. Coming to first, Jdbc ODBC bridge driver. In this driver, this is the first type of driver which is introduced. And in this Jdbc ODBC bridge driver, Jdbc method calls are converted into ODBC method calls. And these ODBC method calls using ODBC driver are converted into native API protocols. And this is a Microsoft product, as most of the Microsoft products are platform dependent. Even it is a platform dependent driver, it works only on Windows and it does not support in Linux or Unix. So it is a main drawback of using this ODBC driver. And it is almost discontinued from Java 7 and we can't even test this ODBC Jdbc driver in present versions. If you want to test this, you have to go back to the versions less than 7. To overcome the drawbacks of Jdbc ODBC bridge driver, they introduced a type 2 driver. Type 2 driver is also known as native API driver. This native API driver uses client-side libraries of the database that converts the Jdbc method calls directly into a API calls of that particular database. So to overcome these drawbacks, they have made this type 2 driver. Type 2 driver is platform independent and secured because it uses the native API drivers of the database itself. But even there are some drawbacks of these type 2 drivers that are like, to use the type 2 driver, we have to have the particular API of the database present in our system. Without having a copy of that API, we cannot use these drivers. So everyone who are willing to use this type 2 native API driver should have a copy of that database API installed in the system. Otherwise, they cannot use this native API driver. So this is a drawback of type 2 driver. Coming to type 3 driver, it is a network protocol driver. It uses a type 2 driver native API driver. Network protocol driver uses a middleware which connects many systems to an admin system. Suppose if you have 15 systems to install a software, and installation of each software in each system takes 5 minutes, and if we go through serial processing, it takes a large amount of time to install in each system, where this network protocol driver connects all these systems into an admin system, and it sends the copy of API to each system in a parallel way, so that installation time decreases to 5 minutes. In this way, type 3 driver, network protocol driver, will be used in situations where we have to network through the systems. We can use this type 3 driver. And there are even some drawbacks of in the type 3 driver, like the stability of internet should be stable and native API should be present as in type 2 driver. To overcome all these drawbacks of these type 3 drivers, they introduced type thin driver, that is type 4 driver. It is also known as pure Java driver because it converts the Jdbc method calls directly into the server protocol calls, like specific vendor specific data type protocols, where it converts these method calls directly into the database native API calls. So there is no middleware involved in this type 4 driver, and most of us use this thin driver in the present running versions. So type 4 driver is the most used driver at present in this present Java 17 versions. In this way, these drivers helps us to connect to a database. So there are some steps to be followed to connect the Java application to the database. The steps are like, there are 5 steps to connect a Java program to a database. First step is to load the driver, establish a connection, creating statements, executing queries, obtaining result set, and closing the connection. Step 1, loading the driver helps us to load the driver, which helps us to communicate to the database. Establishing connection. After loading the driver, we have to establish a connection to that particular database. So different databases have different drivers. For example, like here I am using Oracle 10G software, so the name goes like oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. This driver helps me to communicate with the Oracle database. And after that, creating statements. Step 3 goes like creating statements. We have to write some SQL queries for executing, and in step 4 those queries will be executed and result will be obtained as a result set. And after successfully executing and obtaining result set, we have to close the connection between the Java program and the database. Here I am using Oracle 10G software, so the connection URL goes like jdbc.oracle.thin. Thin is the driver which I am using. So now let us see the Java program to connect a Java application to the database. Before going to the program, let me show my database. Here I am using Oracle 10G software. System is my database username and Manoj's password. Here I am using CSV table for in my Java application. The data contained in CSV table is this. And now let us go to the program. Here in program we have to import java.sql package for using Jdbc methods, and I have placed all this code in try block because there may be exceptions like driver class cannot be loaded all the times, and even after loading the driver class we cannot able to connect to the database sometimes, and there may be other exceptions like the database may not contain any tables, or the table we are trying to perform query on may not contain any data. So to accept all those exceptions, I have placed all this code in the try block, and I'm even displaying the error to the user by catching the exception. Yeah, boy. So execution starts here, where in the main where we are first I'm going in the traditional manner. I'm first loading the driver. Here my driver name is oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. Here I'm using 10G software, Oracle 10G software, so the class.funname method is used for dynamically loading the driver, and the driver name goes like this. And in second step I'm creating the connection with the database. Here I can create the connection using get connection method, which is present in the driver manager class, and we have to mention the driver which we are using. Here I am using the thin driver, and it takes other two parameters which are username and password of that particular database. And as shown before, so username of my Oracle 10G software is system and password is Manoj. And after the connection is created successfully, we have to create the statements. Creating statements can be created using create statement method, and using the statement class and storing all those statements in the statement object. Now coming to step 4. Step 4 includes the execution and obtaining the result sets. We execute the query, and the query returns the result as a result set. We store this result in a result set. We can execute query using execute query method using a statement interface. So here I am writing a query like select star from CSC, which returns the total data which is present in the CSC table. As we have seen previously, there is some data in the CSC table in Oracle 10G database, and we have to use RS, which is a result set dot next for displaying those result which we have obtained by executing the query. And this is the rs dot get int. Let me show by describing the table. One second. See here, I have described the table like number which is an int, variable which is a string type, and number which is an int. So we have to use same here, where first is an integer and second goes string and third goes integer again. So we have to, I have placed this in a while loop, so that I can get all the data from that 1 2 3 4 all the data. If we have placed this statement separately, we get only the first data, and again if we place the same statement, we get second data. So to avoid this, I have placed it in a while loop, so it runs 4 times until r dot next is null, and returns all the data from the table. And step 5 is closing the connection, and that's all. This is to show the error if any exception rises, and closing the main and closing the class. And let's see the execution of these. One sec. The program is successfully compiled, and if we try to run the program, here first step is executed. Loading the driver class is executed, but the driver class does not, here the driver class didn't load, as it shows the class not found exception. In every case it happens because we have to set the class path for the driver class or oracle class. We can set the path in two ways, in permanent way or in temporary way. Let me try using temporary way for defining the class. We have to collect the class path from Oracle software. So when here in Jdbc lib, and we have to copy this address, and yes, remember this odbc.14, this is a version we are using. Jdbc 14, we have to load the jar file. Now class path is set, and if we try to compile again program and run the program, now here the connection is created. Before we have got the exception like class is not found, that is driver cannot be loaded. Oracle driver is not loaded. After setting the class path, the Oracle driver has loaded and created connection, and step 3 we have written the queries, and step 4 even a result set is obtained, and the results are like this. It's same as the, see, this is same as the data present in the database. 1 2 3 Manoj, B2 Kaushik and Ash, and this is the execution and connection. Even the connection is closed, it is shown in the fifth step, and there is no exception in the program. And now let's once go through the program and overall. First, loading the driver using class.kernel, and creating the connection using get connection method, which is present in the driver manager. And next, creating the statements and executing query using the statement interface, and closing the connection. Here goes the flow of the Jdbc program, and thank you for watching the video.